Okay, good afternoon, everyone. I am Michael Carey. We are having a meeting of the directors of the New York Convention Center Development Corporation. I am not Henry Silverman, but I will serve as acting chair for today's meeting. And I now call to order the meeting of the directors of the New York Convention Center Development Corporation for Wednesday, January 30, no, January 30th?
No, it's the 18th.
December 18th.
December 18th.
Markup. What do I have here?
You got the markup. No, I think you have the right date. You just must have a typo.
Okay, I'm sorry. January 18th, excuse me. I'd like to note for the record that this meeting is being webcast. The directors have received the relevant written information, materials. I can attest that because I read them last night in advance of today's meeting and are free to ask questions at any time. I'd like to take this opportunity to welcome a new member of our board, Adam Schuman, was recommended to serve by the governor, our ultimate patron and boss. But Adam, I don't know if you want to introduce yourself in just 10 seconds or whatever you want to take.
Sure.
Hello. Welcome.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. So I'm Adam Schuman. I'm a partner in the law firm Perkins Coie. It's a national law firm. We have a New York office. We're based in Seattle. My background is litigation. Prior to being at the firm, I worked in the executive chamber as special counsel for public integrity. Prior to that, I was general counsel for the State Housing Agency. Before that, I was chief legal officer for Standard & Poor's Ratings, based here in New York, and I was a federal prosecutor in the past, as well as some other different legal roles. Very happy to join the board.
Well, welcome. On behalf of everybody, I think I'm the longest standing board member, so welcome to this group. It's a great project. I think you'll find everybody's great to work with, so welcome aboard.
Thank you.
Let's see where we go from here. Having welcomed Adam, please note that we welcome public comment on the items on the agenda. To ensure maximum opportunity for participation, speakers representing themselves may speak for up to 2 minutes each, and those representing groups may speak for up to 4 minutes with one speaker per group. Speakers' comments may address only the items considered at today's meeting. Before we begin with the substantive portion of the meeting, I'd just like to ask the directors whether anyone has any potential conflict of interest with respect to any of the items on today's agenda. No. There being none. Hearing no conflicts on the foregoing have been noted for the record. Our first order of business is the approval of the minutes of the directors' meetings. Here we go. Now, January 30th, 2019. And September 25th, 2019. So why don't we just take them separately? The minutes of January 9th,
I move the January 30th minutes.
You move. Second?
Second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, those are confirmed.
I move the September 25th, 2019 minutes.
Thank you so much. Any second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, those are approved. All right, so I guess we get down to motion carry. I think, Robin, where do we go from here? We have a request for authorization to amend the fiscal year 2019-2020 budget.
Yes.
We're going down or going up?
First, well, I'm going to explain that.
Okay, good. As you always do with great alacrity and clarity.
First of all, I would also like to add my congratulations and welcome to Adam as our new member of the board. He and I sat for quite a little bit not too long ago, so I hope he's brought up to speed. And as the directors always know, I'm available for any questions that they have. And if you would like any further information, please let me know. The second thing I would like to say is that we are still missing one set of minutes. My apologies for that. That would be the June meeting. We've been trying, as opposed to having a live stenographer, which Michael was whispering to me, we've been trying to do transcripts off of the webcast. And the June meeting was a bit problematic in that, but so we're keeping after that, and we will you should expect still to see a set of minutes from June, but we are otherwise up to date. And lastly, I'm glad that Alan Steele is here to see how the other half of government lives, because we are not able to give you large accommodations with lunch, and we apologize for that. But we thought I know that we had gotten together not very long ago, but I thought it was very important for us to get together for 4 particular reasons before the end of the year. First of all, as was anticipated at the last meeting, the steel and the concrete superstructure is done, and you're going to hear more about that from Gus Mamus during the President's report. We did have a governor's visit to the site on Saturday, December 7th, basically to celebrate the conclusion of the superstructure, and you'll hear more about that also in the President's minutes. But as a prelude to the two action items, and you'll see as you read them, the two action items are really related. As a prelude to the two action items, let me remind the directors of where the funding for the expansion project is coming from. You will remember that we have a $1 billion state appropriation. We have spent somewhat more than half of that, since we're somewhat more than halfway through the construction project at the moment. You will also recall, as an aside, that New York State Division of Budget anticipates the return of that $1 billion. So something to look forward to in the new year is the potential disposition of some of the excess properties held by CCDC, which would be the proceeds of which would be used as a return on that $1 billion New York State investment. But a critical second component of the expansion budget is approximately $500 million of proceeds from the hotel unit fee bonds, HUF, hotel unit fee, sometimes called the HUF. You probably will recall that HUF is a $1.50 per night charge for hotel rooms, occupied hotel rooms within the city of Manhattan. That money comes into a dedicated fund, and in 2015 and 2016, that revenue stream was securitized, and upfront from bondholders, we received approximately $500 million. So I like to think in round numbers that the expansion project is $1.5 billion. $1 billion of New York State appropriation, $500 million of HUF proceeds. So the way that the HUF works, right, we have the $500 million in our bank accounts. Hotels charge that nightly charge, and that charge comes into a lockbox. The vast majority of that money in that lockbox is dedicated to the repayment of bondholders, of course, right, over the next 34 years or more. Right? For the next many decades, that collected revenue will be primarily used to pay bondholders. Pursuant to the bond documents and to law, there are also a series of, I think of them as rainy day funds, but basically they're additional security for the bondholders. And so by law and by the bond documents, there is also additional money that is kept in separate lockboxes, basically as an excess reserve for bondholders. But on top of that, as long as the economy is doing well, which we all hope it will continue to do, and as long as the hotel industry is doing well, then there are dollars over and above what are due to the bondholders, and over and above what is due legally to put into the rainy day funds as extra security. We've called those excess HUF dollars. Pursuant to the law and the bond documents, they are not required to be held for the bondholders. They are required to be used for capital improvements at the convention center. So after much back and forth between CCDC, ESD, and the New York State Division of Budget, we have now isolated $12 million of the excess HUF over and beyond what is necessary to protect the bondholders. And after discussion amongst the three parties, we believe that the best use of that money is to fund important life, health, safety issues inside of the existing building, unconnected to the expansion. And so I just wanted to give you that background, and this is what the background to the two action items that we have today. I do want to clarify that the use of this money for the existing facility will have no impact on the expansion budget, because the proceeds, the $500 million proceeds, are something that we have and will be dedicated to the expansion. This money is over and above that. But when we looked at our priorities, as Gus and I will discuss later, we believe that the expansion project is on time and on budget. And our highest priority now is making sure that the existing facility remains the first-class, world-class facility that all of us want us to be.
Robin, a question. Mm-hmm. Is there a sunset provision on the hotel tax?
Yes, but
When the bonds are exhausted, yes.
Right, so
When
that's-
they've
it's-
It
matured.
is tied to the termination of the bond.
Yes.
correct.
I won't be dead. Well, at least you'll be dead. I'll be lucky. But the question I have is, now that we're actually allocating this $12 million, to me, that means that this is the first time we are doing it, or the most recent time we're doing it, and that this should become a pattern going forward. Because to me, the continued sustenance of the core Javits Center, irrespective of the renovation, should be this type of investment, and it seems as though the excess fees, assuming the economy is good, that this should be a continued practice, the allocation of appropriate excess fees based upon the economy and the return. After the bondholders have been satisfied and after there's the extra money, I'm assuming that this is a pattern that we're going to continue to follow. There'll have to be an annual approval, but I'm assuming that this is a pattern and that these monies will continue to be used for such purpose.
Elaine, you want to?
Yeah. We feel that that money has accumulated because it's never been touched. We don't anticipate it to be that large going forward.
The excess.
Correct.
Mhm.
And so we'll look at it on a year-by-year
Right.
basis and make a judgment call. So we'll look at it next year before the bond year ends and see what we have. But we never touched it, and it's been accumulating over 5-6 years. So if there is any, it will not be at this magnitude.
What is the level of conservatism? You know, I believe in, bondholders should be securitized and all that kind of stuff, certainly. But what is the level, can you just explain to me the level of conservatism in terms of the excess guarantee, just so that I understand it in my own way?
In the bond documents, there are certain reserve requirements that need to be met, and this is above and beyond what's required.
But when we say above and beyond, what's the order of magnitude we're talking about? When we say above and beyond, what does that mean?
What do you think, it's growing like maybe 2 million a year?
Yeah, but it's approximately, so rough justice, 2 times annual debt service is essentially kept in those rainy day funds in aggregate.
And that's deemed to be a reasonable conservatism. That seems to be considered conservative.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
And
So
we have the folks at DOB who do bond issues all
Yeah,
the
so
time
that's
looking
a
at it as well, so we're not.
I think my point, and in fairness, I'm on the board of the Javits Operating Center, so, I'm being, disclosing that. I do think it's something that we should have an expectation, even if the money's less. I do believe that's what the money was intended for, and to the extent that the conservatism has been achieved, I think on an annual basis, this is a discussion this board should have, so.
Well, I'm not a lawyer, but my understanding from our lawyers is that that money has to be earmarked for things related to the prior renovation, not just the operations. So we believe that.
Well, I
we'll
consider repairs and renovations operations for the purposes of this.
But Elaine's point is, as you say, it has to fit within the categories that are permissible. And this time
Yeah.
around, before we went to budget, we did check with outside counsel on this. And the advice that we got initially was much more conservative than where we are today. And we've gotten, when they looked at the documents again, they agreed that at least for this purpose today, it fits squarely under the definition of expansion or renovation.
And I think specifically the prior renovation.
Right.
Right, no, and that's fair,
Right,
but there'll always be things on the prior renovation, there'll always
Right.
be needs. Yeah, okay.
One quick thing, and maybe it was 40, and you said the city of Manhattan when you
Yeah.
read
Yeah.
It's the city of New York.
The city,
It's
All
it's
five.
5 boroughs.
Oh,
Yeah,
sorry.
five.
City of
Yeah,
New
yeah.
York.
Boroughs. I'm sorry.
I said it may have been 40.
I-
Staten Island one's out, maybe
No,
Manhattan
no,
one's
no.
out.
All the boroughs count.
Okay. All right, so-
Yeah, thank you.
I
Any other item to
want to
present,
make
or-
one more comment, Lee. Is that I just think in the director's mind, they should think of this as possibility as opposed to probability in terms of how you're thinking of structuring budgets, because for the various assumptions that you state, such as a robust economy, et cetera, there may be a lot of fluctuation. But with that as background, I would take you to the first item, which is really an administrative item, which is a prelude to the expenditure of the funds. So back in March of this year, the CCDC directors authorized a $462 million capital budget for fiscal year 1920, which is attached to your materials. there was included within that budget an other miscellaneous category of $10 million, which is largely for the capital funding of the type that we're talking about at existing Javits pursuant to the funding agreement which CCDC has with CCOC. And so as a matter of corporate record keeping in terms of making an appropriate adjustment to the budget, we would ask the directors to amend the budget by increasing the other miscellaneous cost categories from $10 million to $22 million to reflect the additional $12 million of HUF funds, and then increasing the overall capital budget by $12 million from 462 to 474. So that's why I say, Michael, it is up, but it is
No, I got it.
it's within the context of additional funds being added to the budget.
Understood, don't pay
Yes.
attention to my evening.
Fine.
Are we ready for a motion?
Yes,
Okay,
please.
before we do, are there any questions from the directors? Okay, seeing none, are there any comments from the public? No comments from the public. Okay, I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Lee?
So move.
Okay, second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. So moved, passed. Okay. Robin, we have another one?
We do. A companion piece.
Oh,
Okay.
I'm sorry. Yes.
you okay? That's the most
Okay.
important thing.
We thought the
Yes.
public was asking a question. That's-
A lot to digest there, buddy.
Ready. So we've explained the genesis of the $12 million. We have just extended the budget in order to prepare for this. And now, of course, since that division of budget has made that $12 million available to us, to CCDC, to be clear, it is in CCDC bank accounts. And so pursuant to formula that you've seen before, you will recall that we have an existing funding agreement between CCDC and CCOC for CCDC to fund certain capital items within the existing facility to be performed by OC, but to be funded by DC. And so your second set of materials reference the initial $31 million that we've expended so far under that funding agreement. And the second piece now deals with a request to distribute the new $12 million. This additional $12 million constitutes, would be used for 9 new projects, which are detailed in attachment B in your materials. These 9 new projects total $11.8 million, a little bit over $11.8 million. The balance of the $12 million would remain as yet unallocated for future expenditure between CCDC and CCOC. And of course, as you've seen over the years, if there's any reallocation of these funds or prior funds, we would always come back to the directors for the directors' approval of that reallocation. So I'd be happy, I would be happy, and I'm sure Alan would be happy to discuss any of the 9 projects that are detailed in your materials. They are very important life safety items. There's part of a fire alarm upgrade. As is indicated in your materials, the existing facility is fully code compliant and fully safe, but it is not compliant with new code. And we would like to make that fully compliant with new fire code. There are HVAC upgrades, there are lighting control upgrades, the defibrillators need to be upgraded, which is important to the project, and then there are to the facility, and then of course there are various facility upgrades that you see in your materials. So with that, I would request, I would be happy to answer any questions, but would request director authorization to allocate the funds to these projects.
How did you arrive at the prioritization of these projects?
Mr. Steele, you want to try that one?
Sure. I think it's a combination of probably 3 things. Need, where we are clearly aware that we have systems that were originally installed in 1986 and are no longer functioning, or at least not functioning at the level they need to, or will be breaking down in the next few years. So it's urgency of that kind. It's scheduling. It's being able to fit these things into our existing calendar to make sure that we don't interrupt business that is already booked or is coming to Javits next year. So, and then the final thing is availability of funds. So once the funds became available, we went back. These needs had been identified some time ago. Once we had the availability of funds, we went back and reassessed it against the calendar and came up with this list.
And how'd you cost them out, Al?
We have an internal costing apparatus that does that. We do have all of our estimates independently verified, so they all come from that.
Okay. All right, anyone else have any questions or comments from the board? Okay,
I move the allocation.
okay, let's just wait on one protocol.
The
Any
public-
comments from the public? Okay,
Nobody
being
there.
none,
Okay,
Lee?
I move the
There
allocation.
you go. Okay, anyone want a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, okay, motion passed. Thank you. And no response, no opposition, so you're batting 1,000, buddy.
Good so far.
All right. I think at this point, we go to the president's report?
I think so too.
Okay, buddy, you're up. Robin Stout for the president's report.
So thank you very much, and I'm sure Alan and the operating corporation thanks you very much. These are important items for us to get done inside the existing facility. You're going to hear from Gus in a moment with a project update, but the first thing I wanted to say to you is that we have, as you will hear from Gus, we have finished the superstructure. And by that I mean you will remember that the Lindley's Turner expansion project has two primary pieces. The 4-story truck garage, which takes up basically between 39 and 40, is a concrete structure, 4-story concrete structure. All of the major pours of the concrete structure are done. In fact, they were done in August, September. They were the leader because they were relatively more simple to do. But equally importantly now, for the piece of the expansion, which is the expo hall and the meeting room space and the ballroom special event space up at the top, and our spine of back of house activity, all that is steel. And now, as of mid-December, really just very recently, all of that steel is done, including the very last piece, which you may recall me talking about before, which is the atrium, which is going to be the new entrance into the new expansion, basically at 38th and 11th. And I've said for a long time, if you go by the site on the West Side Highway, for many months now, you've seen that the western infrastructure and the western superstructure has been done for a long time, because we started from the West Side Highway on the west and we worked ourselves east. Well, now if you're coming down 11th Avenue, what you will see on 11th Avenue is all that's done as well. So the concrete superstructure for the truck marshalling garage is done, and all of the steel, for inclusive of the atrium now, for the remainder of the expansion space is done. And that's a big milestone for us, obviously. You will hear that as we progress from west to east, we certainly have started on interiors and exteriors while we finished off the steel to the east. But now that we're finished with the superstructure, it was a good time for the governor to come. And in fact, the governor came and made a visit to the site last Saturday, December 7th. I have a press release to pass out if people would like to see it, to see what the governor came to celebrate. It was a cold Saturday, but it was a bright and otherwise bright and sunny Saturday. And Deb, I have more of these for whoever needs them. And we were delighted that he could come and celebrate the conclusion of the superstructure. He signed a beam, one of the final beams that is going to be put in place in the atrium, along with a number of union workers who were on site that day. Both the Lindley's executives and Turner executives were there, as well as leaders of the various unions that are on board. And so it was a great event. A good morale boost for the project, some good visibility, I think, for the operating corporation in terms of letting the exhibitors know that this is marching along and moving forward. And so we are all proud to be there. It came together, the timing of it came together a little later than I might have otherwise wished, and so there was not really time to give invitations out to a large group of people. So I apologize for the fact that there was no advance warning, but it was a terrific event for the project, and we were very proud to have the governor there. And if you have any questions about it, I'm happy to answer.
I certainly understand. I do know it was relational. He told me himself how excited he was for Alan to take him on the motorcycles, which was a very good excuse, and this was a lovely event. But I do find it extremely off-putting that directors are given a press release at the exact same time as the public. And this press release I received from somebody who works for me, not from anybody else. And I think we're in a position here, I understand that logistics, certainly I do this for a living, I understand logistics, but there needs to be a process when there's a press release that directors of all the relevant corporations get a copy of the press release pursuant to their membership on the board, not because it's happenstance.
Okay.
It should, and it's different than saying, oh, people have to be invited. Sometimes the logistics don't merit that or can't be done, but there's no reason that press releases, as a matter of course, relating to the Javits Center are not sent to both the Development Corporation and the Operating Center Board be 5 minutes before or as soon as they're done.
Point well taken. Gus, you want to lead us into a construction update?
Sure. Good afternoon, directors.
Gus, I think
You wanna-
Robin
you wanna
has
step
the
up?
has your
PowerPoint.
presentation on the laptop.
Okay. Yeah.
Gus, you want me to press the button, or are you okay?
I can handle it.
Okay, go for it.
Multitask.
So, good afternoon, thank you for inviting me to the Board of Directors meeting. There's been some significant accomplishments since the September update, which I gave you.
Your voice.
Oh, my voice, sorry. Some significant milestones reached since our September meeting. One very important was the fact that looking at, maybe I'm not able to do that. Looking at the western side of the project, more specifically the transformer building, we are providing power not just to Javits existing, but also providing power to the expansion. We've livened up 2 of the switchgear rooms, and in the process of livening up mechanical equipment so we can heat the space, so we can proceed with the interior fit out in the areas that are not exposed to the exterior elements. So that will help us progress the spine work, which is, as Robin mentioned, is the center of the space and also the back, most of the back of house work, and actually the most complex area of the project. As you can see, the truck mushroom building, the precast work is progressing. And if you look at this portion here, this is the western elevation of the special events and meeting rooms, and you can see the curtain wall and the screen wall progressing. You'll see some interior shots as we go forth with this presentation. So here's a bird's eye view looking at the south elevation of the project. In this area, you can see the curtain wall, as well as the screen wall up here progressing all along the south. What's notable is the fact that the 8th floor roof, all the concrete work has been done, and all the mechanical air handling units have been delivered as of the end of November. There's only 3 pieces of equipment left to be installed, and they're already starting to be roughed out from underneath, so we can get them, so we can bump them and start running them for the winter months. You know, Robin mentioned the atrium, which is right here. It is on 38th and 11th, which will become the main entrance to the expansion, and you'll see a close-up of that as you throughout the presentation. So this is a 6th floor roof. This photo was taken from the top of the 8th floor roof, which I showed you previously, where the mechanical equipment was situated, and this is looking down on the roof of the atrium, which will be right here. Within the space, this opening right there, there will be a glass roof that will be, installation will start sometime in mid-January and will continue into early spring. As you can see, the steel is complete. All 13, almost 14,000 tons of steel were completed as of the end of November, beginning of December. And This is the last portion of the major big concrete pours that they have left to do on the decks. As Robin mentioned, the concrete pours on the truck washing building were completed back in August and September, and these are the last major pours, which will happen over the next week. So this is the sixth floor of the spine roof looking down. The significance of this is that this is the elevator machine room, being one of the elevator machine rooms being completed. We're starting installation of elevators in mid-January. And this is the sixth floor pre-function roof, looking at the screen wall being installed along the north elevation of the project. I mentioned previously about the installation of the curtain wall and some of the interior shots. This is the fourth floor meeting room elevation, which it's just beneath the special event space with some really phenomenal views. So you can see we're inside looking out. By the way, this is not dirt here that you're looking at, just in case anybody's wondering. It's green dust that's used to sweep up the debris and dust and that sort of thing. The level 3 expo, which is the additional expo space that will eventually be married into L3 existing, the level 3 existing. As you can see, we're progressing with the mechanical work. That's chilled water piping that's been installed, tested, and ready to run the units that they tied into. This is the third level of the truck marshalling building. This is a kitchen area that's being roughed out. What's notable is the fact that the drywall and carpentry outfits are 25% complete. Masonry is 58% complete. And the thing that's really impressive is the fact how well the mechanical, electrical, and plumbing trades are progressing. They're really making great strides. Even if you come on a Saturday, you'll see electricians crawling like ants to get the switchgear completed, up and running. One thing that's notable with the downtime as of the 19th, I believe, we're going to complete the remainder of the tie-ins of the expansion switchgear room into transformers permanent equipment. This is the first floor, level 1, one of the concrete slabs that was poured last week. And this is the truck mushing building along the 12th Avenue elevation. As you can see, the precast panels along 12th Avenue are installed. They're being protected right here with this black tarp over it as the overhead work is progressing. This is the clips that will support the sliding gates on 12th Avenue. By the way, the precast is almost completely fabricated and ready to roll on site. So this is the atrium, as Robin had mentioned. You can see the escalators, huge escalators that were brought in. They were literally installed in place and the steel erected around it because they're just, they're tremendous. There are 4 escalators, and given the height of the open space in here, they needed to be installed prior to completion of the atrium. I'm assuming that's the last one. With that, I will answer any questions that you might have.
Gus, in the first slide, it said 65% completion as of November 30th. So is that like the right number? I mean, because it sounds like it's fabulous progress, but is that kind of the right number you were expecting?
It is the right number. If anything, I can say we're like a little bit ahead, only because LLT has been working almost around the clock. They're working 6/10s to get to that point. So I wouldn't celebrate the fact we're a little bit ahead, but we can say we're
certainly not behind. So
we're certainly not behind.
Which is great.
That is correct.
The other question is, on the busiest day of this, and I for some reason was approaching this the other day from a side street, and I somehow saw the whole project in a way I've never seen it before, just by happenstance, and it's stunning, and it's much bigger. When you see it from certain sight lines, it feels much bigger to me than I imagined it to be. But about on the maximum day, how many people are working there right now?
Between 700 and 800.
Okay. In the whole thing?
The whole thing.
Got it.
What is the life expectancy of that escalator?
I'm not quite certain. I can certainly find out and get back to you on that one.
Wondering how they're going to maintain it, depending on how long it lasts.
Not quite certain.
Good thing we have those hope funds. Okay, any other questions?
I would only conclude my president's report by taking a cue from Lee and his question about completion. So yes, we do believe we're making good progress, knock on wood. We think we are on schedule. You'll see the governor's press release and his comments there at the site make it clear that he believes we're on schedule and on budget, as I keep telling you. So I will repeat to you that the base project that we have contracted with Lindley's Turner for is on schedule for March of 2021. We and mostly Gus fight the battle every day to make sure that that work continues and is coming along. From a budgetary perspective, we are also on budget. You recall that we have a $50 million owner contingency and a $50 million FF&E pot on top of the $1.213 billion base project. You will also recall that what we've talked about several times is a rooftop pavilion and a farm, which I would remind the directors was not originally part of the base contract signed with Lindley's Turner, not part of the 1.213. And therefore, Gus has worked particularly hard to keep that within the $50 million owner contingency. And it even working hard to keep it at a conservative number, it will take up the bulk of the $50 million owner contingency. There's two pieces of good news associated with that. One is that we think that the $50 million contingency will absorb it, but that will lead you to the second piece by process of deduction, which is really the number of change orders from Lindley's Turner has been relatively few for a project of this size. And this gets back to the whole concept of design build, which is where they're designing the project with their architect, and that's all behind the screen that we don't see. And they have taken our program requirements, turned them into blueprints, and they're erecting our program requirements. Gus and his team are on site every day, every hour, to make sure that our program requirements are exactly what are being built by the Lindley's Turner team, and we have verified that that is the case. But without much deviation from those program requirements, and therefore without a large number of change orders. So far so good. About 14 months to go, and we'll keep you posted every step of the way.
I just want to clarify one thing, Robin. You said that the 1.2 million did not include the rooftop pavilion. We did have a value engineering exercise so that there was a possibility in the contingency that we would value engineer back the pavilion and farm. So it's not as if it's coming out of nowhere.
Yeah, no, yeah, yes. The further story is that it was part of an original concept, but when push came to shove to try to keep ourselves within the boundary of a budget that we had available to us, it was put on the shelf, and so it was not part of the $1.213 billion base project. But everybody liked it so much, it's come off the shelf, and so we're trying to accommodate it.
Mr. Chairman, I just think as the end of the year is here, I think it's worth noting with compliment to the staff of both Development Corporation, the operating company, our architects, our overseers, that from a fiduciary standpoint, this project is proceeding in a very strong and responsible way. And it's something that is in the process of something we're going to be very proud of. It's not done yet, because Robin will immediately say it's not done yet, but there are moments in time when you can measure success, and this is moving along very well from a fiduciary and oversight standpoint.
I think you took the words right out of my mouth. I think it's actually in the script, but.
Oh, it's in the script?
It's in
Okay,
the script, but.
and I didn't read the script, okay, so I can plagiarize something I didn't, it's not plagiarism.
I think given the time of year and all of it, I would just say that, having been involved with this project really from day one, that it's really a fantastic report, interim as it is, but obviously on track, on time. I think the governor's comments speak to that. 65% is at or about or better than where we should be, so that's terrific news. Knock on wood, hopefully this time next year we're even closer. 4 months away, I guess, roughly, and we'll be 95%. But being that it is the last meeting of the year unless you're going to call us back, Robin. I just want to say to everybody, the board, the staff, the people that are working there, Alan, you and your team, it's a pleasure and an honor to be associated with all of you people, and, you know, keep the great work up. Have a great year-end celebration. Happy holidays, and thank you for all the good work that you do to make this whole thing really a successful effort. It's really, you know, it's really a tribute to all you guys that are involved with this, the board, the people that are working on it, Robin, you and your team, Debbie, Eunice, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. If I left anybody out, you know, blame me. But thank you very much, and everybody
Thank you.
safe, happy holidays. God
You wanna
bless.
do a motion
With that,
to
do I have a
adjourn?
motion to adjourn, please?
Move the motion?
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? Hearing none, we're adjourned. God bless.
Thank you. Happy holidays.